Okay, well, firstly, with HS, there's a tremendous sense of isolation. People often cut themselves off from friends, family, as a coping mechanism, and this leads to isolation and loneliness. Over time, I've had interactions with other patients, and it's been a tremendously rewarding experience. And I think getting involved in HS Ireland, where people get to share experiences, to connect, etc., it can help overcome that sense of loneliness. Secondly, I felt there were a lot of things to be done in the HS arena. And if I write an email, write a letter, make a phone call to someone, and a health official, etc., it's easy to dismiss one person. But if I'm writing or contacting on behalf of 10, it becomes that bit more difficult to ignore. If we're contacting on behalf of 100, it's very difficult to ignore, and so on and so forth. And thirdly, I think there's strength in diversity. Every person who's impacted by HS, whether directly impacted or indirectly, whether it be a family member, we can all bring our own perspective on this, and we can all bring something to the table. And by sharing, pooling our resources, we can become stronger and advocate in a better and more effective way on behalf of everyone with HS. So those are the main reasons why. Sure, my daily life working with HS, well, first off, I'd have a type of routine which I'll describe, but the most important thing is to be able to adapt and to be flexible, because things can happen very quickly. When I get up in the morning, I set aside some time to deal with administration things. There's often a lot of activity in our support group overnight. People aren't sleeping, they're having difficulty sleeping. That's commonly associated with HS. In the early hours, things can be compounded, and there's often distressed messages, etc. If there's too much of that, I'll then do a review of databases, see what literature has been published, etc. Then I'll go about my own day, doing my full-time job. At lunchtime, I'll set aside a few minutes just to check up on admin. Our online support group can be very active at times, and we screen all comments coming in, because sometimes people can post stuff that would be the best quality, etc. And we're careful about what information goes out there, and we review everything. During the day, I'll often have meetings, online meetings with clinicians, etc., and others related to HS. They're doing their clinical work, etc. during regular business hours. Those are the only times when they become available, so I've got to free up a half hour at lunch or whatever during the day. Often in the evening as well, I'm involved in other voluntary groups where people are giving up their time in the evening, whether it be with HS Ireland. We've regular meetings during the week for planning, for strategy, etc. Involved in other voluntary groups in or around the HS area, and there'll also be more admin with the support group. And again, I'll review databases, see what literature has been published, and if I have time, I'll read that, and etc., etc. But the key thing here is anything can happen, and you've got to be able to move quickly. Being in Ireland, we're part of Europe, and the European guidelines for HS management and treatment are about to be updated. And along with several other patient organisations, we were invited to contribute to those. They'll be coming out, I think, towards the end of the year. So that's a significant achievement, in that not many other patient organisations, especially in dermatology, have contributed to clinical guidelines. All dermatologists around Europe follow these guidelines in terms of how to best manage. So that's something quite significant. We've also been involved in some research projects, and we've contributed to publications. We've also directed a few. But the most significant thing, I think, I can think of is a quote from a mother who recently joined our group. We have many mums in our group who have adolescents or teenagers with HS. And the quote from this mum was along the lines of, "I've learned more in 10 minutes in this group than in 3 years attending a dermatology clinic." And that's where we're making a significant impact. We're helping people today with practical, actionable and general lifestyle help. First and foremost, patients listen to patients more than anyone else, and there's some data emerging to back this up. There's tremendous distrust of industry and, unfortunately, of healthcare professionals. And I think if we can try and bridge that gap, because no one doubts the intention of healthcare professionals, of healthcare, etc., but because of that mistrust, people are going to defer to patients first and foremost. And some patients, while again no one doubts their intention, they'll share anecdotal evidence that can be quite harmful in instances. So I think if we can use the fact that patients listen to patients more than anyone to help communicate the tremendous things that are happening out there, but perhaps use that in terms of, I think that's a big challenge, because this mistrust, it's damaging, and the lack of uptake, say, of COVID-19 vaccine illustrated just what the general sentiment that is out there amongst the public, and that's unfortunate. I think bridging that gap and closing that gap is key here. In addition, communicating all the tremendous things that are happening. It's all good and well, and I understand the need for dermatologists and others to communicate in technical language, but if that information is just sitting in a journal that not many are reading, or bar the specialists, it's not much good. We need to get the information out there, and we're living in the digital age. We don't have to wait for a journal to come in by post and access it in the library, etc. Patient organisations can be very good means of communicating this information. Furthermore, the information needs to be done in a patient-friendly format, using good instructional design principles, use of videos, infographics, plain language, text, etc. Finally, there has been an explosion in the amount of HS research in recent years, but a lot of it is hidden behind specialist journals where you have to pay a fee to access these. Approximately 60% of the publications on HS are in specialist journals with hidden behind paywalls, and we need to make more of those open access, I think. The main factors impacting quality of life, first and foremost, is the diagnostic delay. That can have a tremendously negative impact on the individual, on the healthcare professional trying to treat that individual, and on society at large. By the time many HS patients get to see the right people, they are in an advanced stage. Healthcare professionals are frustrated because their treatment options are very limited, and society is impacted because disability is an issue with many HS patients. They're unable to work, they're accessing welfare supports, etc., and it's costing society. I think HS can be a progressive disease, and if you get in there early, a lot of the clinicians talk about a window of opportunity. And if you can get in there early and halt the progression, ideally reverse the situation. Like most things in life, the earlier you get in there and take appropriate actions, the less negative the outcome. In terms of quality of life itself, HS can be devastating psychologically, and I don't think that is fully appreciated outside of the community, the clinicians who deal directly with it. I give advocacy talks and awareness talks to many healthcare professional students along with other patients at HS Ireland, and we often hear the comment is, "I thought it was just boils." The general picture that's emerging across dermatology is that a lot of skin conditions are far more than skin deep. It's your largest organ. It's the first thing that people see, and because of the societal fixation on body image, etc., this can have deep impacts on the psychological well-being. Whilst most of the HS guidelines advocate for psychological supports, in reality, it's not happening, and we're not getting access to those supports. So that, for me, is a huge issue that needs to be addressed. In terms of treatments, in most areas around the globe, there's just one approved treatment, and there are a few others that are used off-label. Some of these treatments work in some of the people some of the time. We need more effective treatment options, and it gladdens me to see so many clinical trials underway. While I appreciate there's a huge attrition rate within the clinical trial industry, if even a fraction of these come through and make it to approval, we'll have more treatment options. Having just one approved treatment option, if there are no options there, you have to try that, and if it's not working, good luck to you. The fact that there is such a lot of research and development going on in the area, that's encouraging. I also see a lot of clinicians, industry, patient organisations working together in an integrated and coordinated effort to try and address the issue of diagnostic delay. And that's key. And it's not just making society aware of the condition, it's making healthcare professionals aware of it, and also of how best to manage it and refer to specialist services if need be. So the increase in research, the huge number of clinical trials, and people from the various stakeholders working together, and that's got to be key, all working together. My ultimate hope for this would be integrated multidisciplinary care clinics, so that if I go to see my dermatologist and I'm struggling with depression at that moment, I can then be referred down the corridor to a specialist in mental health. Or if I'm struggling with wound care, there's a wound care specialist on site, and not have to go home and then wait for another appointment in the post, and integrate all the specialists on one site. That would be my ideal for HS care. Get all the different specialities together on one site. I'd say get help as soon as possible. I believe there's a 2.5 year delay between the patient going to see their family physician. There's a lot of shame and embarrassment, particularly in younger people. They're already trying to deal with a changing body and a lot going on in their life, and then you factor in something extra like this. There's no shame, you've done nothing wrong. Go seek help as soon as you can. Go seek expert help. Find out a specialist in your locality. Find out who is caring for HS patients and go and see them. If they're not in your locality, find out where they are, the nearest city, and go there. By investing in your health is one of the best investments you can ever make, and particularly so in a chronic condition like HS. So find out these specialists, go see them, it'll be worth it. Secondly, educate yourself as best as possible about what's happening, what are the treatment options, etc., etc., and be your own best advocate. Knowledge is power, etc. By being informed, you can have a more interactive discussion and a more fruitful discussion with your healthcare professional at each meeting. Find out if they mention a possible new treatment at the next consult. Go and do your research in the meantime. and then come to them armed with the questions you want to discuss in that meeting. If I was to address a politician now, I'd highlight to them that HS is a very high burden, under-researched condition that has tremendously negative impacts on the individual, their family, on healthcare, and on society at large. Invest now in proper treatments, care, research, etc., and you will reap the rewards in time.